Welcome to a demo of RESTpoint. Today we're going to expand upon our last demo where we created the My Portfolios API, which was for managing stocks in a portfolio. We deployed the endpoints. If you recall, there was our paths. We came into Postman and we issued gets and CRUD requests. And now we're going to come in and start building on the next iteration, which we knew we would do because this is an iterative process. So now we're going to get into adding a little bit of logic. So right now we come in, we can create a portfolio, we added the bodies, let's say to add a portfolio, and we know we have this to now we're going to start dealing with, which is, right now if I tried to add a portfolio, it would allow me to create this portfolio with empty names and empty manager. Now I'll do a post, there it is. Because we don't have any logic on the back end that says what to do. Similarly, if I wanted to add a portfolio into a stock, there's nothing that stops me from checking if the stock exists in the stocks collection. So if I go to add in the stock into this portfolio, I want to make sure that it exists in stocks. There's no checks to do that. So let's go in and start adding some logic for our next iteration. So if we look at our paths, let's pick the first thing we talked about, which was let's start adding some business logic for checking for the portfolio name. So anytime a path is created, you have the ability now to inject some script. So this script is executed before, in this case, the create runs, and then as soon as the create runs and adds it to the collection, you can run a post request script. So here we're going to add in some validation to check for the portfolio name is empty, and in a post you could do something like send a notification to Slack. So we're going to focus first on the pre-request script, which is checking for a valid portfolio name. So let's add in a comment that says that do not allow an empty portfolio name. So RESTpoint provides a simple DSL, very conventional. We can click here, you'll see that these are the commands supported for each, and if loops, breaks, and returns. And as well, there's several system objects that are injected. So there's more information about that in our documentation, but let's just jump in and you'll kind of get the hang of it pretty quickly. So if I do not want to allow a portfolio name, I'm going to say if object, and object in this case is really the object coming in. So this would be your request body is put into the object that you want to create. So if someone is creating a portfolio, they send in this. We're going to say if the portfolio, the object name is empty, then we're going to say $error equals please provide a portfolio name, and then I can do end. Now let's give it a little test. If I leave the name empty, you'll see yes, please provide a portfolio name. Now I also, if you recall, said we made manager name mandatory, so let's do the same thing for manager. So we won't allow a portfolio to be created unless a manager is specified. Please provide a portfolio manager and a portfolio manager. So let's run a quick test. Manager. We're going to put something in name so that doesn't happen. Great. So we have that. All right, so we added that. There's our initial logic, and I'm sure there's more logic. It's going to get more and more as we go, but this is our next iteration just to do some checks. And if we wanted to ensure a certain length of a portfolio name, we could add that in, but let's keep it simple right now, just to give you an idea of making it, showing how to inject logic. So when adding a stock into a portfolio, we want to make sure that the stock exists in our collection. So if we look in our collection right now, we have Amazon and we have Tesla, ID 1, ID 2. So I don't want to allow a stock to be added to the portfolio unless it's in there. Now, we're talking about API requirements here, and this is what this is about, fleshing these things out. Maybe once this is looked into, maybe we do allow someone to add the stock. If it doesn't exist in the stocks, it can be added. But this is all a function of trying to flush these issues out. So for our next iteration that we're going to send out to users, we're not going to allow a stock to be added to a portfolio that isn't in the stocks collection. So let's add in a comment that says validate the stock is in the stocks collection. So using our simple scripting, we're going to say our collection of stocks is all our system paths. We're going to say get the path called stocks, and our list of paths we can get it right up here in the API paths. Get, and it's the name, so get collection. Now we have that, and now we're going to say if stocks, missed my dollar, if stocks has object, and then we're going to say $object because that's what's being passed in, and then we're going to say stock must exist in the stocks collection. Probably not the message we're going to go with in the end there handling, but this does it for now. And that's another thing about working through the API is, we can start working on our messaging too. So, and it's not if it has the object, it's if it doesn't have the object. So if it does not have the stock in the collection, then we want to disallow this. So let's give a test. Now we know that Google is not in the collection. Oops, and we'll give this an ID of 3 because we only have 2 right now. So if I run this, variable stock has not been set. Whoops. What did we do wrong? Oh, I missed an S. Okay. So we now hit our message that it must exist in the stocks collection. Great. So let's save that logic. Now, we also, for stocks, probably the same idea. So let's take that logic on the create, and we're going to add this into our stocks. Anytime we add a stock, we want to make sure that the name, please do not allow an empty stock name. And we also don't want to allow an empty ticker. So do not allow an empty ticker. So if we update the logic, now if we tried to create empty ticker, we say please provide sticker, and if we enter in an empty name, you'll see we get that because we have to put in the return, and we'll put in the return. Let's do that. Now you'll see, please provide a stock name. So let's update that. So what we're trying to show here is how we'll do validation. So if we take a look at our next iteration, we added in some business logic, and we went into our portfolio, we said this, and we got some feedback that we would like to see a value put in for the portfolio. So we're going to add in a value field, and we're going to call this a number, and we'll save, we'll do an update. And one thing to note is that as soon as we update, all your collections would be updated. Everything that involves a portfolio will be updated, and you'll see that there is the value of now 0. So we can add in some numbers. We can say that's 500, and we'll click save. And we'll add this one is 1,000. And we'll click save. So for this next iteration, we we did get some feedback. We added in some logic. We added in value to portfolios. Let's move to deploying this to the next iteration. We're going to call this beta 2. And let's deploy this. So our paths didn't change in this one. They certainly could have, but they didn't. So we will just simply grab the new endpoint key. And now we can test out the next iteration, which is there. And I'm going to change that to a get. And we'll get started with the first check, which is portfolio. And you'll see, oops, let's go here to our body and click none. And you'll see there's the value for our next iteration. Now notice your other beta is still running. So because these are complete separate API backends, you can have all your versions running so that as you iterate it to the next and the next, those are still there for users to go back to. So we're using our next beta, and again, there is all the information for it. Let's do a test here now. We're going to go in and create a portfolio, which we did last time. And we're going to put in an empty name and a manager. So now when we try to create a portfolio, please provide a portfolio name. Okay, so let's provide it. And we're going to say my favorite stocks. And let's make sure that the manager has to be provided. We'll add this. And we provide a portfolio manager, and we'll say Jane Doe. And now we should create the new portfolio. And if we do a get, there's the portfolios. Yeah, we got that. Let's put that none. And you'll see there's our portfolio. Now when we go to add in a portfolio with a stock that doesn't exist, let's try that. That was our other issue that we had to address. Now we know from our data collection that we have stock 1 and 2. So if I want to try to come in here and add in a stock to that portfolio, and I'm going to add in a stock, and let's get what's in there now. And I'm going to click none. Let's see what's in there now, and you'll see that we have Tesla only. So let's grab this out of there. And now I'm going to add in Google, which we know doesn't exist, and should give us our problem. So we're going to try to add in, let's add this in here so we know we have the right properties. And I'll get rid of this. So we'll add in Google. And we click post. And you'll see stock must exist in the stocks collection. So we are getting closer and closer in this next iteration to finding more issues. So when this gets sent out to users, they will play with this and test drive this next beta, and then we will collect, and while they're out test driving it, we're already working on the next iteration. And even as I work on this this API, I can see, okay, there's more we're going to have to watch out for here. We're going to have to come into portfolio, stocks, and we're going to have to add in here that says, okay, what are we going to do? Let's give an error message if we try to add the same stock again to the same portfolio, or should we just allow it? When we come into stocks, if I come into my business logic for stocks, when I do a delete of a stock, well, maybe I shouldn't allow a stock to be deleted if it's already in a portfolio. So these are the things that start to keep coming up. You know, when I come in to add a stock add a stock to my list, should I be validating that to some central stock to make sure that it is a valid stock ticker? So there's various things that we can keep on every iteration. These are all things you avoid running into when the expensive process of final software development starts. So to someone that's upfront designing the APIs, you can really flesh through a lot of the issues. So in conclusion, we just wanted to show how you iterate to the next level, plug in some business logic on our past iteration to hopefully get more and more after each iteration to really flesh this out and do this very quickly. Thank you.